So this is the F5 podcast. I'm Justin Rosenberg,
I'm Chris Deal.
and this is all about transferring to IT from somebody who has not done IT and who wants to transfer IT. We have a Kansas City chapter of the Operation Code, and Chris Deo is it Dio or Deo?
Dio.
Dio.
Just thank God, but not that good.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
Oh boy, I'm just an old farm kid that fell in love with tech.
Okay. So
We used it, probably earliest on in our tractors and whatnot on the farm.
okay.
My dad had the very first PC in Kansas City, the very first PC
Wow.
in Kansas City. So I was brought up learning DOS, and of course Basic A was the big thing back then.
So I had one of those computers that was like an IBM clone, and I had the DOS disk.
Yeah.
And I remember putting it in there, and I remember programming what I could at that age.
Right.
How old were you?
I was probably I was in grade school, so probably 9-10 years old, probably.
Okay. We're probably about the same age then.
Pretty close.
All right, continue.
So, I got started back in the early days, like I said, at computing, when everything was on huge floppies and it took 20 floppy disks to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the first program I built was a code, like Hangman or something simple like
Okay.
that. But they put out books kind of like our tutorials on YouTube today. Follow this and do it, but it was in print back then,
Right?
and that thing was like as thick as War and Peace
Yes, it
to
was.
draw. An arm, a leg, just basic stick figure, 10 lines or something, but all that. Go to this dot, and then go to this dot, and go to this pixel. It was all quite complex. First time.
So what led you to the Army or the Navy or the whatever?
It was the Army. It was the
Yeah.
Army. I tried the Navy, tried the Air Force first, but I was
Okay.
red, green, colorblind. So they said nope. So
Okay.
I went to the Navy. Same thing.
Okay.
So they told me I could do Marines or Army.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was gung ho, but I wasn't gung ho enough. So I chose to go with the Army.
Army. Okay. Why'd you choose to go with the Army? Like, how old were you and what were you doing?
I was 18. Just before my 18th birthday. 17 and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And I come from a military background. Just most men in my family have served in some capacity.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather was in Korea in World War II.
Mm-hmm.
Dad, of course, was Vietnam era.
Mm-hmm.
And I got caught up in Desert Storm, so we all kind of had our generational battles.
Yes.
As far as what led me to the Army, I don't know. beyond family history and the desire to serve.
Yeah.
They would take me since I'm red, green, colorblind. So, but my choices were fairly limited. I could only do combat arms. So
Okay.
I started out.
And what's that mean?
That means pulling triggers and making bad people go away.
Okay.
I started out in artillery, telling the guns where to shoot and put what we call it putting steel on target, steel on steel. And then, being young and dumb, I had to keep moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Wound up going into forward infantry, forward observer, and then into infantry. Which
Okay.
I don't know why, because in the artillery, we trucked everything, and then all of a sudden I was sleeping in the mud and it was on my back.
Yeah.
So that was a transition.
Yeah, I bet.
And from there, ended up as an instructor with the Ranger Regiment.
Okay. How'd you transition from infantry to instructor?
I got hurt.
Okay.
Classic story. We joke about it, but it's really is true. A fair amount of the instructors, they've still got life left in their service. They can still teach and train and pass on their knowledge, but they're no longer fit for field duty,
Mm-hmm.
for combat duty. So a lot of them shifting into education roles.
Mm-hmm.
Drill sergeants, of course, all the school instructors. AIT instructors. I was drawing a blank on my school. The AIT schools instructors, and then of course when you go to your line unit, your regular battalion instructors.
Right. So, how many years did you spend in the military?
14 total.
Wow. And so, like, did you retire or did you, like, what
boy.
is it?
No, I didn't retire.
Okay.
There's a long story behind that one.
And if there's anything that you don't want to speak about.
No, it's fine. Because of what I did while I was on active duty, my marital relationship was very strained. We were part of a rapid deployment force, so and we would go to our office on base, Monday morning at 8 o'clock or whatever after our PT and morning muster, and we'd get orders, and we'd be anywhere in the world in 48 hours.
Wow.
No contact, no letting anybody know. We just all of our spouses and significant others realized that we were gone when they looked around and realized that everybody else's was too. So that played a big toll. So I got off active duty, went into the Guards and Reserves, and thought maybe that would mend things, but it didn't work out. So her last ditch request was that I get out, so I complied as an effort to save my marriage. And got out at 14 years, just before they started doing the early retirement. So yeah.
Bad timing.
Bad time. I have a knack for bad time.
Well, anybody could be listening to this at any time, so we should talk about the time. It's February 2023.
Yep.
We might be right in front of a big wave of a big recession. We might not be. Everything might be cool. And everybody on the market, at least, they don't know. Yeah,
it's crazy out there right now.
And we had a lot of large layoffs in the tech sector. So what have you seen job searching? I'm skipping ahead to today.
Well, when I decided to make my transition from my blue collar careers into tech last year, I did my research first. I wanted to see what I was getting into. I knew that the entry-level market was brutal no matter what, just a lot of competition and a lot of numbers. So it was going to be difficult to get started anyway. At that time, the statistic I read was something on the order of 300 applications, perhaps 10 interviews, maybe one offer. That was kind of the statistical average.
Okay.
Now it's much, 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 much more challenging.
Right. So how many places have you placed your name in? Like, do you have any statistics for you?
As of today, I am just under 300.
Okay, that you've applied for?
I've applied for, sent resumes.
Okay. Now, how many of those, they actually contacted you?
I got 5 that called me back.
Okay.
Well, 6 that called me back initially. 2 of those I got through the initial screening processes and went on the next level. One of them I went all the way through the interview process, all the way down to the final candidacy selection, and I didn't get that role. It turns out there was somebody better qualified than me in the queue, so good for them.
Yes.
But it was still a learning experience for me.
Right.
So, and I've got another interview coming up tomorrow, so we'll see where all the iron.
That might be at my place, huh?
Yeah. The personal connections. On that note, the thing that I wish I had learned years ago is the value of personal relationships and networking.
Right.
I've always been an extreme introvert. I was a trucker for almost 14 years.
Okay.
Out on the road by myself in my cab, just me and my dogs, and I was perfectly fine with it. But so that suited my personality well. But as a result, I didn't have a broad circle of friends and associates. So I've kind of been rebuilding that over the last couple of years. Of course, I found the Operation Code group in August, I think it was.
How'd you find it?
Meetup, actually.
Okay.
I was doing a lot of reading, a lot of researching, and one of the suggestions that keeps coming up is go to hackathons. Get out and meet.
That would be brutal.
So knowing what I know now, that would be like, throwing yourself into the fire.
Definitely.
But I remember just doing a search for hackathons and meetups and coding meetups in Kansas City. Meetup.com came up, so I started scrolling through the listings and found Operation Code. Clicked on the get more info or whatever the button was, and somebody replied back to me.
Yeah.
And
Jim or me?
I believe it was Jim.
Okay.
I believe it was Jim. I'm not for sure. But you guys were the one of, I think I reached out to about a dozen different organizations, and you guys were the only one that had any sign of life. Of course, we were both coming out. We were just coming out of the pandemic and getting back to normal at that time. So that probably played a big role in it too.
So what was your first Operation Code meeting like?
I was blown away. It wasn't a big group at that time. I think probably 4, maybe 5 guys.
I don't think I was there, or was I there the first time? I don't know if it was your first time.
I don't think you were there my first meeting. I
Right.
The second time.
Yeah, the second meeting I think I was at.
So, Jim get a little talk about what Operation Code was and what we did.
Mm-hmm.
And then probably 10, 15 minutes into it, it's like, okay, what problems are you having?
Mm-hmm.
And open up the laptop, showed him my code, and we spent the next 6 months debugging and okay, this worked good, but here's a better way to do it.
Right.
And
yeah, I like the term we mentor at wherever you're at.
Yes.
And we put as much effort in as you do.
Yeah.
So if you come to Operation Code and you don't put any effort into it, I don't put any effort into helping you.
Right.
It's like serious, but the people who come to Operation Code and who show initiative, they've gone places.
Yeah.
Like Justin and Camden are good examples of.
Yeah, I've heard success story after success story, not just in our group, but in the national group.
Okay.
So it's real. Going back to that networking and meeting other people thing, the process of getting to know everybody in the Kansas City chapter and getting comfortable with talking to people and meeting people and becoming far less of a introverted hermit crab has allowed me to put myself out there a little more than I would have in the past.
Yeah.
And this last Tuesday we had a huge, first time I'd ever been to it, but I guess there was a huge Amazon Web Services users group in Kansas City.
There is.
They had a meetup on Tuesday, and I went to that.
How many people showed up?
Probably 60 or 70.
Oh, wow.
It was a big operation.
Yeah.
It was sponsored by a company here in town called Slalom.
Okay, yes.
They partner with AWS and rented out a local establishment.
Mm-hmm.
Had catering and happy hour, the whole 9 yards,
They had alcohol?
They did have alcohol.
Well, that's why there's 60 people there.
Right. So, but made some very, very good connections that actually, one of them is the senior, I'll say senior, I'm not really sure what the hierarchical title is, but he's the bigwig in Kansas City on the account services side.
Okay.
And he's...
Of Slalom or who do you work for?
Of Amazon.
Of Amazon, okay.
Yeah, I met about 8 people from Amazon that were all in senior roles.
Uh-huh.
And everybody was more than willing to talk and share their knowledge.
Yeah.
And offer advice. And, so.
Right. It's amazing. It's amazing how small the city is, but how big, just putting your name out there.
Well, it's funny you should mention that because the gentleman's name I was talking to is Steve.
Okay.
Steve Lepore, I believe it was.
Okay.
And we were talking. He says, "Well, I don't have anything, but I know this guy over here at Yellow." And mentioned a name, and I heard Jim talk about this person.
Okay.
Forgive me, I can't remember his name, but
right.
It's like, okay, I think that is one of Jim's boss or Jim's boss's boss. He goes, yeah, he's a C-suite exec at Yellow.
Yeah.
But we're golfing and drinking buddies, so I'm going to put you guys together. And then apparently he knew somebody at CRL as well.
Okay. Well,
so that was interesting. I was like, wow, small world.
My recommendation to you is to interview with CRL tomorrow and do well, and then interview with Yellow and do well, and then have 2 competing offers. That's the best scenario,
right?
That
is the best scenario, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I just did a brain dump.
Well, is there anything else like that you think the people would learn from you that you want to share with them?
Oh, I guess probably the biggest takeaway that I got from my coding experience, my learning to code experience.
It was with who again?
So I started out trying to do self-taught,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a little bit of background in web development within the confines of WordPress.
Mm-hmm.
I could make custom WordPress themes and connect it with the SQL Server and all that kind of stuff. A little bit of PHP,
Mm-hmm.
but I never considered myself a true developer.
Mm-hmm.
But I always wanted to know how to do it. I wanted to learn how to build something from the ground up without doing drag and drop type stuff like everybody else. I wanted to be able to build custom solutions. So last year when I got sick with COVID, I was forced into a career change, and I started reevaluating what I wanted to do. And I came back to coding. I said, I've always wanted to learn how to do this, but I've never had the time or the resources to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And here I was given an opportunity to have both.
Mm-hmm.
Unwillingly, but I had them both. So I set about learning how to code, and I started out doing self-taught work with Free Code Camp, Code Train, Web Dev Simplified. These are all YouTube channels.
Mm-hmm.
There were a handful of others as well that I used. Coursera courses,
Mm-hmm.
Udemy courses. Kind of ran the gamut.
Right.
And there's a lot of good information out there, but
Well, for someone who just wants to self-learn, what do you recommend?
I really like the Free Code Camp curriculum
Okay.
because it's not a boot camp, but it's a structured very similar
Okay.
to a boot camp as far as you're going to learn this first, and this is the second thing, and this is the third thing, how everything builds upon another
Mm-hmm.
and works together. Without that kind of a structure, you're just kind of out there.
There's just
You know,
so much.
This tutorial, you're learning how to get an element by ID or by class, and this one you're adding a click listener and an event listener, and then this one you're writing JSX, and you don't have all the pieces in the middle to make
Right.
everything work.
Right.
So you're just kind of left in the proverbial creek without a paddle, and maybe even a canoe.
Right.
So, I'd recommend finding a program that has some structure to it, that
Right.
does follow a defined methodology.
So what was the boot camp you went through?
I started out with Dev Mountain. I
Okay.
took one of their introductory 4-week intro to web development courses.
Okay.
Taught me the basics of HTML, CSS, and a little bit of JavaScript.
Okay.
How to make a button work, and some simple stuff like that.
Right.
But that was enough to get a taste of it, and I was hooked. Really wanted to continue with their program, but I didn't have the funds to do that, so I had to look for other alternatives, and I found an outfit called Promenio Tech
Mm-hmm.
that was partnered with community colleges all across the country to offer affordable coding education.
Mm-hmm.
It was about $4,000 as opposed to the $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 I was running into with the average boot camp,
Okay.
which was appealing to me as well because I obviously didn't have a lot of money at that time, being on disability. And it was a good experience. I mean, it was very, very structured, very defined, and I needed that. It helped guide the learning, and it wasn't without its drawbacks, but it did have the structure.
Mm-hmm.
I came away. Probably the biggest takeaway from boot camp wasn't necessarily what I learned, but that I learned how to learn. I knew,
It's the most important thing.
Yeah. I knew how to figure out. I want to build this thing that does this function,
Mm-hmm.
and I've got 6 out of the 10 of the pieces I need.
Mm-hmm.
I learned how to figure out what those other 4 pieces are that I need, and how to read the documentation, find the tutorials if there are any, and then put the pieces together.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, probably the biggest thing was I learned when to ask for help.
And you already had a way to ask that for help,
I had
right?
a way to ask for help. Yes. Be quite honest with you, if it wasn't for the Operation Code group, I probably would have quit. I would have quit.
All right.
I would have quit. There's no problem to it.
Well, that means a lot to me and Jim and everybody, Colin. Yeah. So, tell me a little bit about your project that you continued on And what is that?
Okay. One of the drawbacks I had in my boot camp was that we didn't do any pair programming or group coding like you would do in a professional setting. It was all, well, I realize that everybody's got their own thing, but,
everybody hates pair programming, but I think it's valuable. like, it's not going to be like every week, but, sit down with somebody and learn. I was just talking with my my coworkers about, like, control, shift, click, right. I just never knew that. And I, have been doing this for a long time, and so like seeing someone else like work, like not really interfering with them, you can pick up a lot of like cool things. So please go ahead.
But the other drawback was we didn't do a lot of projects.
Okay.
We had an assignment that was due every week, sometimes every 2 to 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
They were never real big assignments, so you never got to dive into a project.
Mm-hmm.
And every assignment was, the parameters were given to you. There was nothing vague about it. It was always define a web page that blah 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
So there wasn't a lot of thinking about, this is the way I'm going to organize it. This is the tools I need. There's no architecture or design thought put into it. They just didn't teach that.
Mm-hmm.
So that was lacking. And because we didn't do a lot of projects, now that I'm in the job market, I'm really seeing the effect of that. Really seeing the effect of it. It was a struggle putting together a portfolio. I just didn't have anything that was really portfolio worthy.
Mm-hmm.
So I rectified that. Then also I was so busy learning, my brain was so focused on shoving more information in and processing the data that the creative side of me wasn't going. I couldn't figure out what to build.
Right.
It's kind of funny because the minute I got the email that says, congratulations, you passed, here's your pretty new certificate, all of a sudden just ideas started popping, boom, 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 and now I can't keep up with them.
Focus.
Yes. Yeah, finish this and then we'll build that.
Create a vision board, then.
Right, exactly.
Right. So what is?
So some of the projects that I am working on right now, I'm working on a lead generation and management application for my mother and daughter, who are both realtors. And they're self-employed, so that's a critical piece of their business. It'll offer the standard contact management type of functions as far as saving the contact information, name, address, email, all that sort of stuff. But also interface with their email applications like GoDaddy or not GoDaddy, but MailChimp or Aweber or something of that nature, so that they can actually write emails and send them from within the application.
Cool.
There will also be a SMS application part of it too, so they can kind of take care of all their one-side appointment scheduling, communication, kind of a one-stop shop for.
So how are you managing all the cool things that it can do?
I'm learning. It's a huge learning process. To start off with, I decided to build things in React.
Okay.
I was struggling with how to.
Let me interrupt you because I wondered, like, do you try like a Trello board or anything to keep track of all the things that you're doing, and so you can do them like one at a time?
No, I'm a little old school. I'm an old man.
All right.
I've got about 15 notebooks and a box of ballpoint pens.
Right.
And masking tape taped up to the wall.
Yeah. I'll have to show.
I do utilize technology, but I have not used a Trello board.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So please continue.
But
so it's React app?
My training is in front end development. I'd ultimately like to learn the full stack, know how to do the back end, the middleware, and the front ends, put it all together. But right now, I'm pretty much just a front end guy.
Right.
So I'm working with JavaScript and React. Probably have to pick up Angular at some point in time.
Well, it depends.
How that goes. It just depends on what the shop needs.
Yeah. My shop, we
CRL, it may be Java. So,
No, at CRL we had contracted with a company, and they gave us an Angular JS app, not an Angular Angular 1, not 2.
Yeah.
And our whole thing was like, why would you do this in 1? Because 2 is like well out, and we just decided to scrap it. And we now are React.
Oh, you are
So
React. Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So
That's good to know.
I don't. Again, I don't know 6 months from now what the universe will look like,
Yeah.
but there is a job that you could do, and it includes React.
Well, I've come to realize there's kind of a joke in the development world, especially around the JavaScript side of things. You see those old safety posters you see at plants and stuff. We've gone 0 days without an accident.
Yeah.
We've gone 0 days without a new JavaScript framework or library. Either way,
Yes.
it seems
Yes.
like there's one coming out every day.
Yes, Fireship.io is a great YouTube channel.
Yes, I love
and for really just to keep up with like random technologies like libraries and stuff, and he does like 90-second videos, and I like watch them, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to go I'm Java and Spring and Timeleaf, and part of me is just like I'm comfortable. I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good.
But there's a lot of demand in the Kansas City area for those skills based
Yes.
on what I'm seeing in the marketplace.
Yes.
.NET and Java seem to be king here in this area.
Right. But I think going forward, like more people are wanting React or JavaScript or Vue
Yeah.
framework. So you were playing with a Netflix app, which was what I was trying to get you to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell me about that.
Yeah. Well, every boot camp graduate seems to have a movie database app, and I'm guilty of that as well.
Yeah.
It was a simple little app that I built utilizing TMDB, which is the movie database.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to use IMDb's database, but they've closed it off to development access unless you pay for it. So TMDB was a viable alternative, gave me the same type of information. So I built an app that when you log into it, it shows you that's on the home page the trending movies and TV shows for that week or that day actually, and then you can search by genres, by actors, and TV show, movies, what have you.
It's really cool. It's nifty.
And then click on the movie posters. I created a card component to house the video information, and when you clicked on that, a little modal popped up that shows all of the information, has a carousel with all the characters and the credits, and then plays a trailer right there inside the modal. And so
I think it's awesome.
I'm trying to add I am adding, I'm not trying, adding
Do or do not. There is
yes,
a try.
yes, there's no try. CRS is strong with this one. So it's a very common project for especially among the front end community for that type of app. And I looked at it and said, what can I do to make it different? Everybody and their brother's got one of these. What can I do to make it different? So I'm adding gets into user authentication and authorization, but you can actually create an account on that site. It will log into the TMDB database and allow you to write reviews and edit reviews for the movies and shows.
So are you using OAuth then?
Yes. Create your own watch lists, your favorites, kind of like a little mini Netflix type of thing, if you will.
Right.
So
that's awesome.
I'm looking for the API. I haven't found it yet. Haven't found the API that I can play with for free. I take that back.
Yeah, for free is always the key.
Yes, yeah. But all the streaming services like Roku and Hulu and whatever else there are out there, I'm looking for an API where I can actually capture that data, and then if I can find it, then you'll be able to stream a show right there within the app.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm probably not going to find it, especially with the free streaming services and the free API. Probably aren't going to go together.
Yeah. So I think we were wrapping up the conversation, and I like Lex Friedman. Do you know him?
Who?
Lex Friedman. He's a guy that does podcasts, and he's in tech, and he's he works for MIT or went to MIT, I think.
Okay.
And I met him through Joe Rogan. So
okay.
So Joe Rogan interviewed this guy. I'm like, hey, that's kind of like me.
Yeah.
And he's Russian. But anyway, he always asks his guests, what is the meaning of life?
What is the meaning of life? Oh boy. If I could give you an answer for that, that mean I'd have to grow up, and I don't want to.
That's excellent. All right. Well, thank you. This has been the F5
You're welcome.
podcast.
It's been fun.
And it's been fun. Yes.